evening. Welcome to another session of the Sea of Glass. Tonight we're going to the book of John. And I want to talk to you about Jesus and Nicodemus. You got to understand that you have a prophet that understands with spirit, and you have a prophet that understands without the spirit and the understanding of the mind. So Nicodemus is somebody that teaches without the understanding of the Spirit, and Jesus is the one that teaches with the Spirit. So you've got to come to understand the understanding of this great power is to be able to understand what it means to be born again in spirit. It's not like the born-again Christian are talking about. Believe me, it's the other way around. They taken every contest out of the Bible and they read it from what they understand from their mind. And it's not what it means. It means different, the understanding. And you're going to see that today. You're going to see that in the most powerful way that you ever saw it before. Read the first line there.
Okay, as Roger said, we're in the New Testament. New Testament under John chapter 3. Jesus teaches Nicodemus. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a member of the Jewish ruling council. He came to Jesus at night and said, "Rabbi, we know you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the miraculous signs you are doing if God were not with him." In reply, Jesus declared, "I tell you the truth. No one can see the kingdom of God unless he is born again."
Okay, let's understand that. You see, once you understand things from the Spirit, you cannot understand it with your mind. Can you? I don't know if you guys can understand that out there. You know, let's go back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve is not the first man and the first woman. You know, you got to understand that 6,000 years ago, the Lord took a spirit, find a species of an animal, and place his spirit inside the species of an animal. Because, you know, the first understanding was Adam, the spirit, not the understanding of what man thinks of it. And, oh, this is the first woman, the first man. So there's all kinds of question about that. Mankind come from a long, species of an animal that came. And then he was the one that used to walk upright. So God said, I'm going to put my spirit into that man. And that's going to come to the understanding of life on earth. Because before that, the animal didn't understand anything about the kingdom of God or anything else. So God said, I have a kingdom, but I got to bring it through somewhere, somehow, in the spiritual term where everybody will be able to understand it. And so he gave that man the spirit. And then he was kind of lonely, so he gave him a mind to go with it. So it became the first mind, the first woman, and the first male to understand the power of the spiritual understanding of. You see, you've got to come to understand that this was not something that God just put a man and just made him, out of thin hair. He made the great power into a human being. The power of human understanding, the power of the feelings of human understanding inside a man. Through that 6,000 years, there's a lot of power into that. From the Noah to Abraham to Isaac and Jacob and to the sons of Jacob, all the way down to the book of Revelation. But you got to understand that once you branch out all these things in spiritual term, the whole Bible becomes alive in the spiritual term. It does not come alive in the mind because the mind can't understand the Bible. There's not a man on this earth that can understand this book with his mind. Unless you understand it with a feeling it's inside you to understand with in the music of intelligence, you have to come to understand the power of that music. And the power of that music is a spiritual term. It has to be born of spirit, not of flesh. It's like a new birth. It's like a new understanding that comes alive inside of you once you start understanding the scriptures. And we're going to see a lot of power in that today. And you're going to see from Adam and Eve to, the great flood. The flood of intelligence, where people lost themselves. You're going to see, the great power of all the teaching. And then you come to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham, the truth became part of the spirit. So God took his spirit of truth and threw it into the beast to understand. See, man was nothing more than a beast. And that's why you had, how did that mind and spirit came, good and evil? Adam and, the great power of Abel and Canaan. So what came from the power of what is into the glory of human intelligence came the glory of this power that we are good and evil. But you see, you needed the truth to make good alive. And you needed the common sense of intelligence in order to see what God looked like, and then into a process of a human being. And then you had to have Jacob and Esau born into the understanding of the two twins that come from, ambition and lazy. So you got to come that, see, unless you change all these personal into a verb of human understanding, you can't understand the Bible. To understand the Bible, you have to look inside your spirit and feelings that you have inside yourself to understand everything that's in there. And everything that's created inside of you is what was created from the great power of the beginning, and each step of the creation became part of that. So there was 2,000 years from Adam and Eve to Abraham. And you had the great flood, you had the two sons, the story of the two sons of Adam and Eve, you had the great power, and then comes to the understanding that, the great power of Abraham was born, and that became the God of Abraham. God of Abraham means the God of truth. The truth, power, and common sense, and the great Holy Spirit, which is the angel of reality, that comes from ambition, and the lazy people don't want to do nothing, so that's why the blessing belonged to Jacob. You see, now you have the 12 sons of Jacob that comes after that. In the greatest glory of intelligence that you can ever imagine, you begin to understand the power of the 12 sons of Jacob that comes in faith, understanding, speech, and it comes in love, and the understanding of the Almighty God, and Dan, and then you have Issachar, and you got to have some kind of a control of government. So you have all these things, country and God, Then you have business, and you have, money, the money system in business. These are two brothers from the slave girl, which I did explain that before. And now you go to the understanding of the theory of the son. Life becomes a fight, and it's a great fight, and it's a great game. So those are the two, last son of Elish, and then you have the two sons of Rachel, which is technology, and you got competition. You see, all these power that lives inside of you has to be translated into a spiritual term. All that makes sense has to come to a spiritual understanding. Now, you see, religion has really fooled the human race because they've been teaching from the mind. They've been teaching the Bible from the mind. All that Christianity teaches, I love Jesus. And it's not the way it is. The great power of this is to be born into an understanding that everything is part of a spiritual understanding that comes from the feelings of human understanding. That's where the Bible is written, inside the heart of a human being. And then when you begin to understand that, then you got to take all the things that don't make no sense in the Bible and believe in the things that make sense, because you are a child of common sense. The real Son of God, which is common sense. But unless you go to the Son of common sense and understand the Son of common sense, you cannot come to understand the kingdom of God. Because the great power, in order to be born again, you have to be born in the spiritual understanding. Take the whole book of the Bible, You know, you can go to the kings and you go to, you know, Sarah and all the other teacher, you know, Jeremiah, you know, all the teachers of the Bible. And you have to go to your spiritual understanding to understand what they're talking about. Otherwise, you can't understand what they're talking about. It's just a riddle unless you understand from your heart. This is why it is so important for you to be able to give yourself a new birth of intelligence. Try to take your mind and put it down low. Take your spirit and lift it up high so you can understand what's written in the book. Great power of human thinking that you have inside yourself. You know, read the next line there.
How can a man be born again when he is old? Nicodemus asked. Surely he cannot enter a second time into his mother's womb to be born.
I want to quote on that. You know, this is a man that thinks from his mind. You know, how can you be born again if you're an old man? How can you go back into your mother's womb? That doesn't make any sense. So in order to make sense, you got to look at your spiritual power. You know, you can be born again because you have to make yourself born again. And not by loving Jesus now, like the born-again Christians do. That's not the power. You know, you got to understand that Jesus represents common sense. And it was born, you know, a man was born and God placed common sense inside of him. You cannot take the man and put an image of God in front of him. You can't do that because then you're going to think like Nicodemus. You know, how can a man be born again? How can a man have anything, you know, unless he understands what he reads? So what happened to religion in the world? They fooled the whole world with false religion of all kinds. Great false prophet came from all over the world, tried to understand the scriptures, and no one has never been able to understand the scriptures because everybody reads with their mind. They're all Nicodemus. Nicodemus is the one that fooled himself, tried to understand something that he cannot see and understand because it's not in his heart. You know, the scriptures, and these were the guy that used to study all the scriptures from the Old Testament and everything else back years ago. These were the St. Andrew, you know, the group of the St. Andrew that they used to tell people what to believe. And man, they made a lot of mistake. Yeah, big mistake. Oh, huge. And they made people being stoned to death. They made people being killed, hanged, burned alive throughout the century because they're false prophets. Whatever they say is not part of the scriptures. The scriptures is to understand things in the spiritual term in a way that a human being can come to understand the greatest power of all time, to be able to understand. Now, Nicodemus is just a man that has no power of spirit inside of him. He's dead in spirit. And so we cannot understand what Jesus is talking about, because if Jesus was talking to him, he was talking, throwing word into the wind, because he didn't understand. You know, you have to be born of a spiritual understanding to understand the scriptures. Scriptures were not made to be understood by the mind of an animal. It has to be done. You see, what you had in the world is all kinds of war, tried to prove that these people are good people, and these people, we fought World War I, World War II, there's all kinds of European war, all kinds of, you know, we had a civil war to see who was good and who was evil. And at the end, you didn't know anything more than it was, because you cannot understand it, because the great power of the struggle of man was to understand the scriptures, and no one has never did. So you come from the time of Jesus until now, you don't have anybody that understands the scriptures in the world. All the scholars and all the, you know, the big teachers in Rome and, you know, in Palestine or anywhere else are not part of the understanding of a spiritual understanding, because they don't have it. They don't turn all the personal in the Bible as an understanding. When you take Abraham and you say he's the truth, you know, in other words, God put the truth inside of a human being, and then he put the common sense of that intelligence inside of a human being, and then he put the understanding of the great power of reality inside a human being, and then From these three were born 12 sons of Jacob in the understanding of life on earth. God, who is the truth, comes with the truth and gives the truth the light to understand heaven. Go ahead and read some more, Rita.
Jesus answered, I tell you the truth. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit.
Okay, now very important to understand this line here. The truth. I'm telling you the truth. You cannot enter the kingdom of God. And I don't care what Christian preacher is preaching out there and telling his people, all you have to do is believe in Jesus and you're saved. Well, that's baloney. I said baloney, because it's not true. You learn this Bible with the wisdom of your understanding in the spiritual term. You see, everything that people have been taught on earth in religion was to worship people. Yeah, worship Jesus, worship the saint, worship this, worship that. The Muslim goes with Muhammad. So here you have flesh and understanding of the beast. You don't have understanding of a divine spirit inside of you, because if you can't understand what that divine spirit inside of you, which God said, I'm cursing the human race, because all they want to do is kill each other in war. And all kinds of things and make himself. So the curse of the Lord was brought on pain. So why does nobody could ever read, the seventh understanding of the seventh great power in the books of Revelation? Why can anybody understand the seal, the seventh seal that was sealed to mankind? Because they cannot understand the power of the spiritual understanding. It's been sealed to them. It's been sealed by the whole. God has sealed the whole world from understanding the scriptures, because the time of the seven has to come to bring the reality of all human thinking into it. You see, what happened is, God said, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you a point of knowledge. And it has to come from here. It cannot come from here. It has to come from there. Otherwise, if you get here, you will just confuse yourself even worse. And that's what false religion has done on earth. It has made the whole world fool themselves with what they taught the Bible meant. And they don't understand the spiritual term. They didn't go down from Abraham, from Adam and Eve to Abraham. They didn't go down the line. And they didn't go into the book of Leviticus and Exodus and all these first books, try to go into the understanding of all these teaching, try to understand what you have to do to cross the desert back into the land of Canaan. And they got to understand the great power. And then they could not understand the book of Numbers, which was the most powerful book to understand, because it was the book that tells you how many spirits you have inside yourself, how many names you have inside yourself. And all these feelings are all inside of you. There's 600,000 that left the land of Egypt to go to the land of Canaan. 600,000 feeling. That's male, and that's not without children and women. See, this is not the great power. Power is to understand the great glory of intelligence that we have inside of ourselves, a whole divine power of human understanding. But if we don't use it in the spiritual term, you cannot understand it. You cannot touch it. You cannot go there, because the great power is within yourself to understand the spiritual part of it, to understand God is spirit. He's not flesh. And he's not a big man with a big, long white beard and all that. He is a spirit that makes sense inside of us. And every day of our life, we have to look at that spiritual power that we have inside of ourselves. And if you don't have it, you're dead in spirit, and you cannot understand the power of the above. You see, God gives you the glory of intelligence. And the glory of intelligence is to be able to understand the Simeons of our heart, the Reubens of our understanding, the faith that we have to understand with. And see, all of these things has to come into the understanding. Now, I'd like to see my audience out there trying to understand a little bit of what I'm saying here. I know you're children of the mind, but if you take just 1 minute to examine your spirit and the way you feel inside yourself, not the way you think up here, but the way you feel, then you enter into this world of knowledge. And the world of knowledge is much, much different than the world that you're used to having. Great power of that is to be able to understand that this is the glory of intelligence that you have inside yourself. The spiritual part of yourself is to understand. Read it a little bit more.
Okay, I'd like to repeat that first line I read.
Yeah.
Jesus answered, I tell you the truth. No one can enter the kingdom of God unless he is born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit.
Beautiful. I like that line. Spirit gives birth. You see, if you understand Jesus, the man, as the Son of God, you don't understand nothing. You have no idea what you're talking about. But if you understand that Jesus was born of flesh, and he was flesh, and nothing more than flesh, but his spirit was born of spirit, and spirit becomes the spirit of the understanding of common sense. You see, this is so important to understand that. Now, everybody worship Jesus. You're not supposed to worship an image before the Lord. You're supposed to worship a human being. You're not supposed to worship a human being. You're supposed to worship the power that makes sense inside of you. That's what you worship. God is the truth. So how do you determine to worship God? Through the truth itself. Once you think inside yourself and you see something that reason that makes sense, that's what's worshiping God. It's worshiping the power of something that brings you to the truth, the power of the truth. Now, everybody thinks that God is this big person somewhere. No, God is the simple truth inside your heart. And when you worship God, you worship that truth. You don't worship a human being or an image before the Lord or a person before the Lord or anybody else. You see, this is how weak we are in human thinking. We're so weak that everything that we think is what we think, and you can't go above yourself to understand anything else. Your flesh believing in flesh and spirit believing in spirit. See, you got to understand the difference. This is where you have to translate. Now, there's part of yourself that your flesh, and you can understand people around you. Okay, now that's part of the understanding. You see a person in your life, you have to love him as you are, because it's important. Now, you have to beat the flesh to love this person. There's people out there that are stupid, they're ignorant, they're all kinds of different things. And you have to love them as you are. Because once you were in the land of Egypt, as stupid as you can be, and the more you go into this understanding of the knowledge of life, you have to come to understand and love everyone according to the understanding of, flesh and spirit and spirit. Go ahead.
Therefore, you should not be surprised at my saying, you must be born again. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit.
When you're born of Spirit, you see, you think of a man of Nazareth. You think a man came there, was born. See, now, this is what Christianity worship. They worship a baby in the crib. They worship a mother that gave birth to that baby. You see what they worship? They worship everything that is flesh, and they don't worship nothing that is spirit. When it's spirit, it's an understanding inside your soul. Until Jesus starts preaching and starts bringing the parable, now you don't worship Jesus, but you worship the power of the common sense of the parable. If you worship Jesus because he said it, that's not it. You got to worship the part of Jesus that tells you something that makes sense. That's what you worship. That's worshiping God. Worshiping God in the way of Christianity, they worship image and people. They believe in John, and they believe in this, they believe in that. Moses said this, Moses. It's not Moses. Moses is the spirit inside of us. It's the spirit of the law. How do we deal with other people? Well, you got to have a set of laws inside your soul. And that's what Moses was. He's not Moses the man, but it's Moses the law that's inside of you. If a man comes and steals from you, well, he breaking the laws of the great power. Now, you can't go on the altar and eat from the mountain, the mountain and the shrine on the mountain. You got to eat from the power of yourself. What is fair for you? Love is the three angel of love. Levi has three sons, and the three sons are justice, fairness, and unity. See, this is how you worship. You worship by understanding the great power. You see, you have faith, that's Reuben. Then you have understanding, that's Simeon. Then you have love, which is Levi. And you have this, and you have to go through the three sons of each one of them about your son and try to understand their spiritual value so you can come to understand the power of yourself. God is the truth. And you can't understand God as a man. You have to understand him as the truth, because the truth is what makes sense over here. This is how you worship. You worship not in church, not by listening to some false prophet. You don't worship by doing that. You worship inside yourself in what makes sense, in common sense, in the reality, the angel of reality. You see, if you get outside that, you're not worshiping God. Because to worship God, you have to worship in this little understanding that's inside yourself, to understand the glory of intelligence that's inside of you. And once you understand that, you begin to think different about it. Even your mind is growing. Even you know, and then somebody tells you something about somebody else or something else, all of a sudden it hits the point of feelings. You feel for other people. You feel for the understanding, because this is feeling. This is only judgment. The mind only can judge. The mind has no power but to judge according to the mind itself, which is loss and gain. Down here you have feelings. Feelings. You see a person that's in deep trouble, you try to make him understand. You don't give him all kinds of stuff like Christianity think that charity is such a great gift. That's not the point. The point is trying to make him understand the power of the understanding. You got to use your office inside yourself and your resource that you have to make people understand the value of the truth. Okay, Rita, read another line.
How can this be? Nicodemus asked. You are Israel's teacher, said Jesus, and you do not understand these things? I tell you the truth. We speak of what we know, and we testify to what we have seen. But still, you people do not accept our testimony.
Okay, the truth now. You see, Nicodemus is the mind. It's a teacher that we have in our society. Catholic priests, the Pope, all of these people, they are children of the mind. They try to understand the spirit of their mind, but they're so confused that even they can't explain because they don't know what they feel. You see, if you teach religion, any kind of religion without feelings, you mess up the whole thing, because feelings is what makes sense inside your soul. Feelings is what God is. God is a feeling inside of us. He's the feeling of truth that makes sense inside of our common sense, in the angel of our reality. We look at things, and you look if they're real. First thing, you go back, and then you go back to common sense, and then you go back to the Father of intelligence, which is the truth. You have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit inside of you. To understand the glory of these things inside yourself, you understand the truth. And if it's something that somebody tells you, oh, Jesus saved you by his blood, don't believe that, because it's not true. This is what the mind thinks. The real power. What is the blood? The blood is the understanding. The blood is the understanding of our feelings. That's what it means. Jesus said, "This is my body. This is my blood. Drink it in the understanding." You're not drinking blood of people. You're not drinking blood of a man. You're not drinking the wine and believe his blood. You see, this is all the confusion of the stupidity that the mind is. Unless you translate these things in spiritual terms, like the Catholic Church been translate that in 2000 as total ignorance and stupidity, and nobody can seem to understand what it comes from or what it is. But they just go back to the Last Supper and look at it in the way of their mind. And then they form religion based on that. You know, instead of being form religion on the base of truth, common sense and reality. You see, common sense is like you can understand the truth to common sense. And then you go to the Holy Spirit, which is the end of reality, you can understand the truth there. See, these three persons, not three persons, but they're all in one, in the understanding of a person that's inside of you. And that person is there in three different terms of the truth. First, you have the truth itself. Then you have a common sense of that truth itself. And then you have the reality of that truth itself. And then you make sense inside your spirit so you can come to understand the great power of that. Now, in the religion of the earth, nobody teaches that because they don't understand it. See, when they try to understand them is how it works in their mind. So they try to make sermons according to their mind. So they say something that could make sense sometime, but most of the time they lie to you because they don't know the truth. See, the truth stands by itself, and you cannot bring the mind to understand it because the mind is not made to understand the truth. The mind is made for loss and gain. If you get something more than what you have, you go to that mind and you let the mind go. But if you try to understand that with your mind, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because the mind is not made for that. The mind is just the wife of the spirit. Okay, Rita, read some more.
Jesus continued, "I have spoken to you of earthly things, and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things? No one has ever gone into heaven except the one who came from heaven, the Son of Man."
Okay, now, believe me, this is something great here. Son of Man here. The history of man. The great power. The people that came on earth to believe in spiritual power. You know, the Son of Man is the history of man. Throughout, you see what happened here, Jesus talked about the Son of Man in the New Testament. And he claimed that the Son of Man is coming and he will return one day. And you see, what they don't understand from the Son of Man, they think, well, that was Jesus. Jesus is coming back. You know, so they understand the Son of Man as the man, instead of understanding the Son of Man as a spiritual term again. See, you have to translate the Son of Man into a spiritual term. Then you have to look at the history of man and say what happened to mankind. And then you can come to understand the Son of Man as a spiritual power that was going to happen to the world, and people were going to believe in that. And at the end, they will be in terrible shape because they won't be able to understand nothing. And now, if you go back to Abraham, back to, Adam and Eve, and you begin to look at 6,000 years ago, try to understand that man was created millions of years before that. Just God happens to throw this spirit into an animal. And the animal took it and became upright with it. And he became better than all the other species of the world because of that understanding. But you got to really come to understand that he did not rise that much in 6,000 years. He's still the beast of which he came from. And there is no noble destiny until he comes to a spiritual value of human understanding. Otherwise, you're always going to have war. You're always going to have people killing people. You're always going to have the world in terminal turmoil of stupidity and ignorance Because you look at the world today and you look at it and people take a gun and they go shoot people all over the place. Why? Why did these people do that? They learned the same exact thing as other people. But then they lost their soul in believing stupidity, ignorance, and believing that there's good people and there's evil people. You see, what will come to be is the people that comes to the understanding of this great power of spiritual value that becomes divine inside each one of us. God is the truth. And unless you understand that truth, because I tell you in truth, if you don't understand the truth and you don't worship the truth as the real God of heaven, then you're in deep trouble. Because people worship image. All you do when you're a Christian is try to save your butts. And that's not enough. Saving your butt is not important. It's saving your spirit from the stupidity which it came from the animal. It's trying to rise in the great power of something greater than what you can understand as an animal. Can you take a lion and teach him not to bite people, not to, to kill people? You can't do that because the lion is a beast, and that beast is over there. You can take a tiger. You can't teach him. You can probably, bring him up as a little baby and then try to but he's still a wild animal. And that's what you have. You have the power of the people on earth that in 6,000 years, they're still the same animal they were 6,000 years ago because they did not rise in the spiritual understanding of his power. The power to take a human being and make a human being higher than a beast. You see, most people think like a beast because their mind is not any higher than that beast. Go ahead, Rita. Read another.
And Jesus went on, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the desert, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life.
Okay, now, I don't know if you read that in the Old Testament when Moses was in the desert, and he raised the snake and put it. You see, the Son of Man is the history of man. What's going to happen to the Son of Man? The history of man of the future. The noble destiny that he was created to receive. The glory of the great power. Somebody changed heaven, put heaven somewhere else. They put heaven and hell, after that. Instead of putting heaven and hell down here. There's people out there that live, and they live according to the laws of man. They live according to the laws of the mind, and they live in a hell on earth because they cannot understand their feelings on the great glory of human intelligence that you stand for. God, who is the truth of a human being that comes to understand the power and worship a God of that truth. You see, what happened to the world? What happened to the world? Why is the world in such a shambles now? You tell me now. Well, how come? There's been 2,000 years of religion from the time of the New Testament until now. Why? Why is the human race in Christianity did not raise themselves above into a noble destiny of its power? Because nobody listens to the spirit, to the heart. Nobody listens to the God that's inside your heart. Nobody listens to what is in here. Instead of they listen to what's here, and they lose themselves. Why all these things happen in the world? Because people do not go for their noble destiny. They think that they're going to be saved one day. They'll die and go to heaven. That's not the way it works. If you want to die to go to heaven, you got to die in the understanding of that great power of yourself. Read the next line. It's very important.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life.
Okay, now, God and only Son now. This power here. What is the Son of God? This is our common sense. Just like God is inside of us in the truth, his Son is inside of our feelings as a human being can be. Not Jesus now. You got to wipe Jesus out of it. Because Jesus is just a man that lived 2,000 years ago. You got to understand common sense as the Son of God. This is so important to understand this life. God has loved the world so much that he gave his only Son, common sense, and other. Where was the crucifixion of common sense now? By religion, the hand of religion, and the hand of government that washed their hand away and let people teach stupid stuff that didn't make sense. Why is religion the only subject on earth that you have the right to fly away from the truth? You know, anything else on earth, every other subject on earth, arithmetic or power or geometry, if you don't use the truth at the center of that intelligence, you cannot work with it. Why is it that it's different for a human being to take religion? You crucified religion. You know, the people of St. Andrew, the one that was responsible for Jesus, you know, crucifixion, are the same people today that teaches religion. The people that believe that you cannot say these things, you cannot do these things. You see, what happened is the great power of a human being there, you know, is that they destroy the power of this truth that makes sense. And by doing that, they did not understand. They crucified common sense and made religion out of the crucifixion of stupidity and ignorance. God, that makes sense, and the power of making sense, you got to come to understand that who crucified Christ? Who crucified Christ? They say, well, the Jews did, of course. No, who crucified Christ? Christianity took a part in crucifying Christ. The Catholic Church took a part in crucifying Christ because they crucified the common sense of intelligence. See, it makes a whole bunch of difference now. If you crucified the man 2,000 years ago, well, the Roman was responsible for it. But then religion, you know, and government washes hand of it. They let people of religion crucify Christ with no reason to crucify him. There was no reason for government to open a door to the stupidity of religion and let him teach the falsehood of what is not the truth. They have no reason to do that, but they did it because they had the authority to stop it, and they didn't stop it, just like Pontius Pilate had the authority to stop it. And that's what it meant. They washed their hand of it. And what happened is religion crucified the human understanding of common sense throughout the century. Christianity is responsible. The Catholic Church is responsible. The Mormons is responsible. All the people that taught false religion are responsible for crucifying Christ on the altars of human understanding. They did not crucify him in the cross in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, but they've been crucifying for him for 2,000 years. Go ahead.
For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son.
Okay, now you got God and one and only Son. You crucified the only Son of God. You did what? You taught that you were doing good when you were doing evil. You made the world look at yourself as a person of knowledge, but you did not see the great power of spiritual understanding in the scriptures. God, you know, really made a curse on the people that taught religion, because people that taught religion thought they were doing good. Okay, read the rest of that.
This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but men loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what he has done has been done through God. You
see what I mean now? The truth is what makes sense at the end. And that's what's going to make sense at the end. All these religions will fall to pieces, every one of them. And they'll all fall because they cannot understand the God that created them. They cannot understand the feeling that's inside yourself to understand the glory of human intelligence. God, who is the truth of that God, and the understanding of the great power of what it is in the glory of human intelligence. What is that? Hey, Brian, how much time do I have? Oh, okay. Well, you thought you'd give me a minute. Okay. You got to come to understand that the power here is to be able to understand that, you see, what happened here with religion? Why did people teach false religion for? Why did the Catholic Church all the things that's not written in the Bible? And they contradict the whole Bible, the Ten Commandments. They contradict everything because they worship an image before the Lord. The first thing that the Ten Commandments gave said, you have to worship one God. Well, they said, no, we'll make up another God. We'll worship Jesus. You know, it's the same thing with Christianity. Oh, let's worship Jesus. He's a lot easier to preach than God, who we don't see and we don't understand, you know. But you see, they didn't understand that God was the truth. And the truth is inside your heart. They did not understand that part. What they understood there was to make the great power of a human being inside yourself. So you can come to understand that, what are you doing to these people? You're teaching falsehood to people. You're teaching a glory that does not exist in the truth, because you are worshiping, and you're worshiping the darkness. That's why it tells you there that people don't like the light. They prefer darkness than the light, because darkness is so easy, you know, darkness is so easy to preach because it's the lies of the world. And these lies of the world tells you the understanding that God, who is the truth, and the power of that truth, is the one that has the light. You see, why does a Catholic preach something that is totally out of contempt with the Scriptures? You know, totally out of contempt with the Scriptures. Oh, they say, oh, well, we don't believe in the Old Testament. We believe in the New Testament. You don't even believe in the New Testament because you don't have the power of the spiritual power that was written in it. You know, if you believe that the Son of God is Jesus, then how can you believe the parable that was spoken by an understanding of these Scriptures? You see, the power is inside of you to glorify what makes sense. But if you don't glorify what makes sense, then you glorify what makes no sense, which is darkness. And this is what happened to the world. The people of this world made themselves understood something in darkness, and they did not worship into the light, the great power. What was that last line there? Read that last line again.
But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what he has been done through God.
You see, if you don't believe in the light is the truth. And that truth lives inside of us. It's not somewhere. It's like you got to take your head off to understand this, and just understand with your heart. Take your head, close the mind for a minute there, and tell yourself, my mind is fooling me. The woman in the garden of Adam and Eve is fooling the power and eating the forbidden fruit, because the forbidden fruit is the fruit of false religion. And whoever teaches false religion teaches something that does not exist. And that's what religion is. They teach something that doesn't exist. You can take a cup of wine and a loaf of bread, put it on the table. They said, this is the body of Christ, this is the blood, and you got to drink this in memories of me. If you do these acts, you know, if you do these acts because you think it's a symbol of your faith, what are you doing? You're breaking the laws because you're twisting the understanding that makes no sense. You see, the wine is not a glass of wine, but the blood of the understanding of common sense. What is the blood of common sense now? The blood is to be able to understand inside your heart the understanding of reality. Once you don't understand that, you are breaking what they call the laws of the Almighty God. Well, we didn't bring no water. Anyway, what is this glory of intelligence that you have? It's to be able to understand first the Father of intelligence, which is the truth, and then you have to match it with the Son. You know, which why did God use the Son here? Because he knew that the whole power of a human being was based on the glory of intelligence. Okay, read it a little bit more. Read the same thing over again. So I want people to understand that.
Okay, let's see.
2 minutes, okay. Okay, go ahead, Rita.
This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but men loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed.
Okay, now, you see, if you talk to a born-again preacher about this, he's going to get mad at me. Those people get mad. They hate me. You know, if I tell them that, you know, you don't understand that. You know, you don't really understand the scriptures. You know, how can you understand the scriptures if you have no knowledge of what it means? See, they hate you because they love their darkness. They love themselves to preach stupidity to people. So what do? They look at people and they say, well, we love people, so we'll teach them the darkness that we have. We don't have anything else, so we can't teach anything else. See, that's why you take a born-again Christian or a Catholic priest, he doesn't have anything to give to people. He doesn't have nothing because he hates the light. And if the light comes inside of him, tell him, well, that Jesus is not the Son of God. We are all sons of God in spiritual terms, in the Lord of intelligence. So you can't raise one man above all the other one and say God has sent only one man to save the whole world. God is something inside of ourselves that we are saved by the truth, not by a man. We are saved by our own common sense, not, the image of a man. And we are saved by reality. We are saved by, you see, because our thinking is made for reality. It's made for the truth. If you take that piece of bread and that wine off the table, you cannot understand the power of the truth that's inside of us. God, who is the truth, is the light, and the light is God. And you have to come to understand that darkness can come over it and obscure the light, but you cannot be saved by darkness. You have to be saved by the light in the understanding of yourself. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up now because we have a little bit of human understanding inside of ourselves. I want you guys to make a test inside yourself. You know, people that are listening to me there, ask yourself if it's true. All the stupidity that's written in the Bible that doesn't make sense. Look at yourself for once in your life and try to understand the light as the great power of the reality of truth. And if it doesn't make sense to the reality of truth, that means it's darkness. It's not the truth. I don't care if it's written in the Bible or not. Make sure that you only understand the truth, the love that you have for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Thank you for tuning in. See you in a couple of weeks. Have a good time. And I hope with all my heart that you guys has understood what I talked about tonight, because it's very, very important to be born in the Spirit. Thank you.